Welcome everyone. In this video we're going to be building a beautiful portrait of Queen Esther. I want to do more of what I'm calling these biblical portraits, but Esther is going to be the first one. This build is pretty simple since it is a portrait, but it is a portrait of a queen. She was a Jew who was chosen to become Queen of Persia, and she risked her life to save her people, so we're going to build this lovely portrait of her. As you can see right now, I'm building a much smaller version of her so I can pose it more easily, but we are going to scale it up in just a moment and then rework it so that it's nice and smoothed again. It's not the most interesting or dynamic pose to work with, but she is, after all, royalty. The longest part of doing any organic build really is the smoothing. I feel like I'm constantly going back, reworking things. Then I have to build things like the hands by hand because it's easier to do that with all those little details involved. This part feels like it's the longest stage, and it's definitely the ugliest. I never know how a build is going to turn out at this stage or if it's going to turn out at all, but we press forward knowing that it's going to turn into something. It was hard for me to come up with a pose for her because there isn't really much given about what she did other than speaking. I did decide to have her holding a letter that she wrote toward the end of the book. It's not something that you would recognize her by, her holding this letter, but it is something she wrote, so I thought it'd be cool to kind of incorporate that somehow in this pose. Her face doesn't look quite as good as I hoped, but with the scale I'm given, this is the best I can do because she is practically up to build height or just a few blocks shy of it. The thing is, she is described as a very, very beautiful woman, and trying to do that in Minecraft is challenging. So I don't know if this is the most beautiful I could have made her, but I certainly did try. After that comes the very long and tedious process of building her clothing and coloring it. And most of that was done using the loft command. I have a tutorial for that if you don't know what that is, but that is the primary tool I use to create all the folds in her clothing. And it does save a lot of time, but it's also very hard for me to get the specific folds I want, so I did take a lot of tweaking and still took many, many hours to get this looking right. And now the best part, the coloring stage where the build looks like it's finally coming together, but this stage can take just as long, I feel like, because once again, I can be very picky with it, and I wanted to try to make this look as realistic or detailed as possible, so I took extra care in adding little bits of detail wherever I could. I don't know if her clothing is historically accurate, but I was looking up a lot of references and trying to get ideas, and then I just kind of made up something based on all of the references I looked up. But of course, we can only speculate, can't we? She is a queen, so of course I'm going to give her a cape. This was once again using the loft command, that's why it just appeared so suddenly. But I did spend quite a bit of time after I did the initial loft to touch it up and maybe remake sections and add extra wrinkles and other things like that. And once the shaping of that was done, it's pretty easy to just take a brush and just paint over it lightly with a few colors. Generally, it's good to stick with at least 3 colors, one for a midtone, a shadow, and a highlight. And usually that's all you need. You know how hard it is to stare at a build that has a bald head for this long? It was actually very difficult. So I was really excited when I finally got to add hair to her and she starts to look like she's more completed now. By the way, the command I used for the hair is just the spike command. It is also an Archeon command like the loft command is. We also have to give her something to wear on her head that resembles a crown or some kind of decorative headpiece. I'm not really sure what it is, but it looks really pretty. And we need to give her some kind of environment, something for her to stand on, so I'm creating this very simple stone texture. And this was made using different noise patterns from Archeon or World Edit. Now I can just finish off this base and write a little quote on the side, something she said. She doesn't have many quotes, but I think this one best describes what she did and why she is remembered today. I could call this done now, but I decided it needed a little more things on the platform itself. It felt kind of bare. She was just standing there all by herself, so I decided to add some pottery and plants just to kind of fill in the spaces and give her more surroundings. So here I am creating some pottery, and all I'm using here is creating a single side of the pot using the Archeon revolve command to revolve it around, and after that I can paint it to be anything I want. And again, I tried to look up patterns that might be represented in this time period, but in the end I don't know if this is historically accurate, it just looks interesting. We had a little bit more color and interest in this build, so I added a fern inside the larger pot using some curves and, of course, the loft command. Now all I have to do is piece everything together and we get our finished build. I hope you guys liked it. It's pretty simple, but it still took me quite a long time to do. Maybe because it's so large, but it was really fun to work on, and I do have a render to show you at the end, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.